Well, good evening. It's an honour and a privilege to be in this room tonight, I can tell you. It is my first time in London, and first time in the UK. I've spent a week up in Scotland, and just flew in today to come and share with you guys and catch up with some people I've met over the last year or so. So I'm in the right room. That's a good thing. So just by way of background for myself. We all have a waking up experience, and mine was probably 2.5 years ago. I was looking online. I follow conspiracy realities, I call them, not theories, because they're pretty much based in fact these days, even though there's deniers out there. So I've been looking on, 9/11, followed all of that right the way through, and I started noticing just little things, and you see your YouTube clips in the side there, and I saw one on chemtrails. Oh, what's that? I'll have a look at that. Started looking at them, and I thought, I don't know about this. Could be, might not be. But I tell you what, when you walk outside for the first time, you see your very first chemtrail going over, you go, what is that? We're probably not. I won't say we're underprivileged in Australia, but we have a lot less air traffic down under, and looking at the skies that I've seen since I've been here, you guys really just do get smashed on a daily basis, and smashed big time. But the thing is now that, once you're awake, you're awake. There's no going back. There's no shutting that down and you're thinking, a mind expanded by a new idea can't return to its original state. So you can only go forward. Although there seems to be a few people who slip off into denial about it all, but at the end of the day, it's a reality, it's happening. So I looked around and I thought, wow, this is amazing, what's going on? Who's doing something about this? Surely there's people out there in the world who are awake to this, and surely they're putting together groups and getting activity happening. So I looked around Australia to start with, and I found one guy in Australia, Matt MC, who put together a fledgling group at that time, Australians Against Chemtrails. So I started talking to him and said, well, come on, Matt, we've got to do something about this. We've got to get the movement going in Australia and start waking people up. So we very quickly decided that we would build a network of groups around the country. So we formed the Australian Skywatch Network, much like UK Skywatch, very similar vein, very similar thinking. So we dotted them all around the capital cities in Australia, so through Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, up in Queensland and Brisbane, Western Australia, and then we started building regional groups out in the country. So we believe, like you guys, it's a grassroots movement. We have to get out into the communities. We have to network and link up with the people in our local communities. And in doing that, there's a power that we can unleash. So initially, that setup was really sort of without guidance. I don't know why. We just knew that we needed to link up with people. And start looking up, start taking some photos, start documenting this, start finding out information, educating ourselves, researching. These just seem to all come naturally to us, so we've gone down that road for a little bit, and then we worked out, well, who's actually doing? We started thinking, who's actually doing this? How can we find out what's going on there? And there was a couple other people in Australia who were sort of at the same time were satellite to what we were doing, and one guy in particular, a guy called PK, he was using the Flight Radar 24 program, and I started looking at some of his YouTube clips, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to run with that, run with that idea, that concept. And good to see a number of people out there earlier, just in that last discussion, we're going, oh, this app and that program. So we grabbed onto that program, and it just clicked with us, and we said, right, we'll build a network of Skywatchers, because we had all these people coming into our Australian groups. We number around, I think it's about 4,500 in the Australians Against Chemtrails group. We've got another group, Australian and New Zealand against, geoengineering protest, which is our protest and activism wing, which is just clicked over 3,200 something. In our groups around town, most of the groups are around about you know, the 200 to 300 and growing mark. But we found a lot of people who wanted to be active in doing something. You know, there's a process that you go through when you wake up to this. At first it's surreal, it's disbelief, like, surely this can't be happening. Like, you know, my government wouldn't do this to me, would they? You know? And then that's quickly followed by a process of anger, like, oh, bloody hell, they are doing this to me, and this is real, this is happening. People get very angry and then quickly frustrated. It's almost like a grieving process that you go through. So we had all these people in in one of these stages of the process, and we thought, well, people just have to get engaged. They have to do something. I mean, not everyone can get up and public speak. Not everyone can, you know, do what these guys are doing. But you can all do something, you know. So we formed the Australian Skywatch Network, and essentially what we did was we found people dotted along the flight paths who were keen to do something. We got them out with a camera with a time and date stamp on it, and just in their daily travels they might be working and pull over and take a photo. I recommend doing that driving, a few of us have tried that. So, you know, suddenly we've got all this information, time and date stamp photos, and we found people who were based at home who couldn't get out and, you know, couldn't be active, so we put them into what we call the radar operator sect. And we've got this one Max has left up for me, local one for you guys. The zigzag patterns are pretty much a dead giveaway of something going on there. But this program, the Flight Radar 20 program, out of all of them, is probably the best that we've found. It doesn't show every plane, that's true, but the ones that we do catch on camera, we quickly tee up, get that photo up online to the radar operator, and then that person can then take a screenshot, much like Max has done here, and in that screenshot there's all the data that we need. We need to know who the airline is, we know the type of aircraft, we know the aircraft's registration number, we know what altitude it's at, what speed it was flying at, headings, those sorts of things. So we pair that photo with the time and date stamp on it to the screenshot, which if you had that fully enlarged, there's actually a little time counter in the corner, so you can match those, you know. So suddenly you've got all of this information in terms of your screenshot and your photo, and that's documented evidence of an aircraft's activity. So we've been collecting that information for some 12 months now, and we've got quite extensive files in terms of aircraft operating over Australia. We know who the airlines are, we know the regular offenders in terms of their airframe numbers, that sort of thing. So, you know, that's something you can do if you're feeling frustrated and you want to get out and make a difference. You guys have already got a growing network throughout the UK. It probably needs a little bit more in terms of proximity groups dotted throughout the country. You've certainly got a lot more air traffic to wade through than we have in Australia. So, but the good thing is you can zoom in and out of the screen, and you can locate a plane, you know, pinpoint it overhead, sort of thing. So they are trackable. It's probably just going to take a little bit more work for you guys in the UK with the increased air traffic. So that's what we're doing in Australia in terms of documenting evidence. Much like you guys, we've also gone to our government, well, not government labs, but private labs. We try to find. We've got probably a good network of about half a dozen now that we use. We do double blinds as well, but we are collecting rainwater samples, blood and hair analysis, soil samples, and we are seeing exactly what you guys are seeing: very, very high spikes, aluminium, barium, strontium. There's also, you know, silver iodide and sulfur dioxides, titanium. These are all highly reflective particles. So these are being collated as well. There's people all around the world now that are waking up to this. You know, you're not alone. We very quickly worked out also that there's people all over the world, and we wanted to connect with them. Hence you know, me being here today with Max and Mona and Olga and Jezza and Niall over there, and we found guys in the US that were moving and shaking on this as well. Russ Tanner and the Global Skywatch Network, Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org. If you haven't tuned into either of those two websites, I suggest you do. There's a wealth of information that those guys have put out.
Clifford Carnicom?
Yeah, Clifford Carnicom as well, Carnicom.com.
Institute.
Carnicom Institute?
Carnicom Institute.com. .com, that was it, yeah. Yeah, certainly Clifford's got a wealth of information there. So I thought long and hard about, and we started that process, so that sort of got us underway. And then I thought, well, we need to get out on the streets, we need to be active, so we decided that through the Australian-New Zealand Geoengineering Protest Group, we would hold a quarterly protest rally. We've had two now. January 20 was our first one, and April 20 was our second. We've got a third coming up, July 20, and then I think it's October 19th for our fourth one to complete the year, where we've linked all of our groups together. We've also linked with Chemtrails over New Zealand, and we started putting protests together, really a global protest movement, which we're linking up with people around the world to work with now. Sorry. 25th of August, there's a new one that's being launched. That was launched just as I left, and I really had no internet time since I've been here, so I really haven't looked into that properly yet. Although I am marked as going on that page, but yeah, when I get back, I'll find out a bit more about that. But, the idea being that people who are waking up all around the world have a date on a quarterly basis that they can engage. And we've had moderate success with that, probably in the order of 250 odd for the first protest and 380 for the second. That included two groups in America, one in San Francisco. Some people in Canada got out with us, and people in the UK who corresponded the following day, sort of thing. So that's been a journey and a process, and it's something that we want to keep going, and we're inspired by what we see in the UK. I mean, it's part of the reason I'm here is just to catch up with these guys and take a leaf out of the page before I go in terms of some education and insight background. So that's pretty much what we're doing down under, and it's now becoming a global thing. Don't think that you're alone in the world and this is just happening to you. It's happening to every single person in the world. And our goal at the end of the day is to institute a ban on geoengineering, and at the very least have a moratorium put in place straight away where we can have a cessation of it. If you go to the geoengineeringwatch.org site, there's a lot of information that Dane Wigington has put together on that site, and there's some pretty scary stuff in there as well. The Arctic, East Siberian Arctic shelf, which is melting due to geoengineering, is of great concern. Underneath that shelf has been methane that's been stored there for thousands and thousands of years under the permafrost, which has never melted. But that permafrost is now giving way, it's melting. There was an article in the Daily Mail, your guys' newspaper, the science section there, about 8 months ago. So this is in the mainstream media. This is something that's being reported generally. It's not just out in our arenas. That article spoke about scientists working over that shelf, and they documented a 100 square kilometre area over that shelf, and they found plumes of methane bubbling to the surface. And these plumes, some of them were like up to a kilometre wide. Now normally when methane is released at a depth, there's a process as it rises that kind of neutralises it before it hits the surface, so it's less deadly, but that shelf is actually fairly low, and the methane is pretty much rising straight into the atmosphere, and it's doing some major damage. So if you go and look at the AEM, the Arctic Emergency Methane Group, I think that's a .com or .org as well, and check out that specific page. It talks about perhaps in the next couple of years we might have some extinction level events taking place, certainly in the northern hemisphere where that's occurring. This is a big concern to us really. We need to see a ban put in place straight away on geoengineering, stratospheric aerosols, chemtrails. If we don't see that ban put in place, we really are headed for trouble as a planet. This is not being really talked about by the governments yet, but it's the lump under the carpet that's, it's the elephant in the room. It's not going to go away. The governments know about it, and they're really going to have to come out and, do something about this before too long. Unfortunately, their thinking is that by chemtrailing, by putting up solar radiation, stratospheric aerosols and solar radiation management, they think that they can cool the planet, but this is a fallacy. They're really trapping a lot of warm air underneath those layers and places, and it's causing a lot of damage. So, go and research it yourself. Don't take my word for it. It's a scary thing, and it's something that needs to be out of the mainstream fully, and governments need to be approached about it. So, we also, like you guys down over here, we approach our government pretty regularly. Like, we send out 300 emails a month to our MPs. We're getting the same response, the same stonewall, the same pat answers saying that, don't worry, it's fine, it's just contrails, it's the increased aircraft traffic. It seems to be the party line, the mantra. Like you guys, we also pretty much get hammered hard by the shills and the trolls out there, and in fact, the contrail side and the Metabunk side. You're doing all right as an activist when you're listed on the Metabunk side, and most of us are on there. So
such lovely fellows.
Yeah, really nice chaps. But yeah, they truly are agents of disinformation. They're trying. Their program is to mask this, to hide this. They're really, paid government shills, and the battle is afoot to bring this information to light, and at the end of the day they'll be exposed for the lies and the pretty nasty people that they are. So I really don't have a whole lot more to say, so it's been a sort of a reasonably long evening, so I'll wrap it up. Before I do go though, I'll just grab my glasses. I speak to Dane Wigington from Geoengineering Watch on a reasonably regular basis. We communicate about what's going on around the world, and he encourages us, he's a mentor for the movement. When I was coming over and I spoke to Dane, I said, look, is there a message that you can share to the people in the room that I'm going to speak to? And he came back to me with this little message, so I just thought I'd share it with you before I go. So he says, upon the issue of global geoengineering rests the fate of life on Earth. If geoengineering is allowed to continue, all will be lost. Each and every one of us matters in this battle to shine the light. While there is yet time, make your voice heard. That's what I'd say. So, it's up to each and every one of us in this room to make a difference. Don't think you can't make a difference. If you share with one or two people every day, and you bring them along in terms of educating them and helping them to understand, you plug them into the material that we've got now. There's a wealth of information. I'd highly encourage you, if you haven't watched the What in the World and the Why in the World movies, to get those and watch them straight away. Like Mona said, get some friends around, watch those movies, share them. But if you tell one or two people every day, and they tell one or two people every day, you attend the protests that are in your area regularly, even if you travel to protests, it will make a difference. Don't think that what you're doing is not making a difference, because it is. It makes a difference to every single person on the face of the planet, and we all have to do our bit. My conscience won't permit me to not stand up and talk about this, and not go out and organise protests and just get something going. So I hope that your conscience as well will not permit you to walk out of this room tonight and just go, oh, well, that was interesting, but what can I do? find something to put your hand to, whether it be, you know, lending weight to the movement, or you know, gifting these guys with some funds to keep renting halls like this and keep having meetings. You know, we need more and more meetings. And I was ever so stoked to hear that David Lim was speaking at another meeting tonight. You know, that inspires me to keep going, and certainly we're going to have more meetings like this in Australia as well. So we need rooms like this, you know, filled every night in the country. You know, get into your community. That's where the grassroots of the movement is. Tell your friends, you know, even if they laugh at you, just say, well, you know, one day you'll come to me and you'll thank me that I told you, sort of thing. So anyway, that's about it for me. So we are going on to the Tabernacle after this. So if you want to catch up and ask any questions, you know, get along there, and we'll have a few people available to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Just to remind you, buy yourself a little microscope and do the saliva test. That's the best way of recruiting someone to this. When they see it happening to them, they freak out and they go, oh my God, it's real. If you want to see the red wine test as well, if you Google airborne fibres London, you'll see that as well. That's another really good one to do.
Thank you very much. Don't go away. Ian, if we've got enough time, we'll get to show the